I learned a lot working in my garden last summer. I enjoyed being able to grow my own food and being able to just walk into the backyard to do it. So rather than working on a winter garden, I wanted to focus on creating more space and using what I learned to treat the soil for the next growing season. I recently visited Washington Gardens State Park and liked the approach they used in creating a flower garden, and then thought about how some of their concepts could be applied to a vegetable garden. One of the first things I realized is that I could increase my garden space by over 40% by simply adding narrow beds along the fence. This way, I could create a new growing cluster without expanding the area. Once the beds were completed, I would go from 7 beds to 10. I have perfected the art of creating growing beds from last year and gotten my costs down by using redwood fence pickets. They're cheap and make creating the size bed you need simple by cutting each board into the sizes you need and then screwing them together. In this case, I wanted the beds to be 3 feet long and 18 inches wide to allow walking space between the existing beds. Basically, the process involved first nailing the sides to the 2x4s and then coming back and adding screws for a more solid hole. You may not want to hear it, because I know I didn't, but pilot holes are a must to prevent wood splitting when you add the screws. It's time-consuming, but pays for itself in decreasing frustration from splitting wood. Whenever you see me use the red drill, that is what I'm doing. You'll thank me later. Once you get the hang of it, it becomes a necessary task, and in no time you have your planter made. Moving the box in place didn't take long, and I put down cardboard in the bottom. While I was making an outdoor cabinet, my neighbor asked me to cut off some dead limbs from a plant in her yard. It didn't take long, and they were perfect for the bed bottoms, along with leaves as organic filler. I added some soil I got from some workmen replacing the sidewalks in the area, and the bed was pretty well filled. Now that the bed had been filled, I could begin to concentrate on amending the soil. One thing I've learned about leaf mulch is that there is leaf mulch and then there is leaf mulch. If you just lay down leaves, they tend to blanket and take a long time to break down. But if you break them into smaller pieces, they quickly go into the soil. Some people use a lawnmower, but I bought a paint stirrer that allows me to break down exactly what I need without pulling out the lawnmower. And there we have the final broken down layer that will cover the soil over the winter, as well as quickly break down to provide nutrients for the soil. That gives me about 5 months for the wood in the bottom to get settled in. And there's still room to add compost and topsoil once I'm ready to plant. I repeated the process to make the second of the 3 narrow beds I wanted to put in. And decided to put a lip on the top of the second bed to give myself a shelf to place things while working in the beds. It looks like a decorative feature, but when you find yourself walking back and forth to get one hand tool after another, it becomes a lot less decorative. In fact, I liked the idea so much, I went back and added a lip to the first bed too. Once the 2 new beds were soil ready, I wanted to move on to the long beds. I'm in zone 9A, so my growing season is longer and I'm still getting peppers, but I also wanted to provide cover and nutrients for those beds as well. I used rake leaves, but this time crumbled them with my hands. In most instances, the small parts will land on the bottom for nutrients, and the large leaves will remain on top to provide cover during the winter as they slowly break down. Step by step, I did that over the beds until they were all covered. The worms growing there will have warmth and plenty to eat over the winter. And finally, as I checked on my compost bucket, I learned you can use your vacuum cleaner dust as a green in your pile. Just be sure to remove any plastic or other items you don't want in your pile. I still have the 3rd planter box to make and fill, but I have time for that. The smaller beds are doing just fine as the sweet peas are growing and will add nitrogen to the soil over the next few months. All in all, I feel pretty good about my progress. If you think there's anything else I might want to do, be sure to let me know in the comments. See you next time.